That's quite an intro. I've always wanted to come into that intro. That song you just heard was Toccata and Fugue in D minor, and I will be getting into that, why that's important in just a moment. My topic of presentation is something that I'm very passionate about, and it's music. So I've decided to do a topic on how does music help people cope with grief. So I do have a couple of objectives I'd like to go over here. The first one is going to be to understand how music theory helps make a song uniquely able to aid in grieving. And the second objective is to understand what makes a song uniquely qualified to assist in grieving. And then at the end, I'll share my own personal experiences with the class. So to get started, I would like to just pose the question, what is a major key and what is a minor key? So to see the difference, I'm only going to touch on this something briefly, and it's going to be the key signature. And the key signature is essentially the collection of every accidental found in a scale. So those of you who are not familiar with music, the scale is the notes. There's going to be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and each one of those notes can be flat or sharp. So I've chosen a couple of keys, signature, well, one major and one minor to kind of touch upon here real quick to kind of demonstrate exactly what the difference is here. So the signature I've chosen is F major and D minor, and I'm going to play them right now for you. So the first one is F major. Now the D minor is the exact same key signature, it's just starting on a different note in the scale. I don't know if you could hear the difference or not, but the difference is that the notes required is there's half steps and whole steps, and when it goes to the B flat, it's a half step, and when E goes to F, it's also a half step. So in the minor scale, the half step occurred one note earlier than the major scale, and so touch upon the major chord, F major, D minor. I'll let you be the judge on whether you could tell the difference or not. But I personally feel that the D minor chord sounds a little bit sadder. And many classical composers actually believe that of all the majors and minors, that D minor was the saddest key that they could compose in. So how do we tell the difference? Essentially, the easiest way to tell the difference between a major and minor key is if it sounds sad or happy. Major keys are typically going to be fast tempo with major chords, and contrastly, minor keys are typically produced using minor chords, slower tempos, and usually a little bit lower on the scale. You'll notice that I included a chart here on the screen, and it's essentially all the major and minor keys with it's the major keys with their relative minors. So if you look at the very top, you'll see C, where the major is the outer ring and the inner ring is the minor ring, is the minor key. So C major's relative minor is A minor, and they have the exact same key signature. I'm just going to play a quick little jingle on each one, and you tell me if you can hear the difference. You can leave a message in the comments, or you can email me and what you think about it, and just tell me if you can hear it. Up a little bit. So that was the C major. It's a little bit happier in tone, in my opinion, and then the A minor is going to be the exact same song, just composed in A minor. I'll let you be the judge of that. Just going to give you a quick little rundown on what constitutes as a major key and what is a minor key, and to be able to hear the differences between them. And most songs, when dealing are sad, are usually going to be in the minor key. So I did want to cite an article I discovered while kind of researching this topic, and it's called Sad Music as a Means for Acceptance-Based Coping, and it was written by Van Den Tol, Edwards, and Heflick. And what this article and study details is that listening to sad songs when sad helps to alleviate sadness. And an example would be, I don't know if I can speak with experience for everybody or not, but listening to Adele after a breakup usually helps me feel a little better. Um, and in his article, he identifies pretty much two different definitions when it comes to identifying music, and it's going to be SIHM, which is self-identified happy music, and SISM, which is self-identified sad music. Sad music, as a means for acceptance-based coping, explained would be that the study finds that we choose music based on 4 reasons. They don't have to be one reason, they don't have to be 2 reasons, it can be all 4 or one or the other. First one's going to be connection, message, high aesthetic value, and memory trigger. And if we're going to deep dive a little bit into connection, it's going to be pretty much the definition would be identifying with the expression or emotions conveyed in the music. So it doesn't just have to be the sound of the music, it can be the lyrics, a song that the deceased enjoyed, or certain instruments even convey emotions better than others. And I'll use an example as the violin is typically a little more dark, somber than, say, a trumpet, which is usually bright and all out there. In our textbook, Grief Counseling and Grief Therapy, it mentions that treasuring objects that belong to the deceased, and I do believe that songs that the deceased enjoyed can be definitely conveyed this way. So the deceased found enjoyment in a song. Listening to that song afterwards can help aid in grief. It can bring comfort to the listener, as one may find comfort in keeping a trinket or a piece of jewelry. And in the message section, one key that listeners reach the goals of cognitive reappraisal is through music with a message that they can relate to. In the study, they specifically cited the 1978 smash hit "I Will Survive" by Gloria Gaynor for its uplifting message. But on the flip side, listening to a song with the sad implications would do the same thing while sad. Essentially, when you're listening to a sad song, you're looking for a reward replacement, and so it kind of moves your emotions from yourself onto the sad song, and you can replace the sadness with songs that help you convey your emotions. The third one is high aesthetic value, and Vanden Toll and Edwards further hypothesized before a listener can reassess their situation, a piece offering high aesthetic value, such as a piece perceived to be beautiful, which I will add is completely subjective to the listener, is oftentimes the most sought out. It's done in essence to distract the listener, so one may find that a piano concerto would be something they perceive as the most beautiful piece that they could seek out. Or it could even be a rock ballad that's, somebody, it's just a favorite song that you listen to. Another thing is the avoidant emotional coping, and music can be used as a method of avoidance, and this can have short-term benefit for the listener. As with all things in avoidance, it must not persist, and it could hinder with grieving, just as any maladaptive coping mechanism could hinder, such as drug use. I'm not equating music to drug use, but it can hinder your emotional growth. And the last one is memory trigger, which is music can be used as a temporary return to a previous moment that the listener was happy, whether it be with the deceased or just to relive a happier moment. An example would be, it's a small world after all because you had a great time with the deceased relative at Disney World, and it just brings great joy and happiness. The study also concluded that memory trigger consequently did not enhance the mood of the listeners, however. So the research concluded that people often listen to sad music when feeling sad. The current research demonstrates that even though people generally prefer the self-identified happy music over the self-identified sad music, they indicated to prefer the sad music to happy music when seeking consolation, and that listening to happy music was unrelated to acceptance or consolation. Moreover, listening to the sad music may serve the function of promoting acceptance-based coping, and consolation during aversive life situations, especially when doing so enables one to feel, be in touch with, and experience one's own sadness. While much research remains to be done, this work suggests that it is possible that sad music could be used as a means of improving mental health in some situations. Lastly, I would kind of like to touch upon my own personal experiences with the listening to sad music as acceptance coping. My mother was particularly fond of the band U2 in the 90s throughout the remainder of her life, and she told me personally that they reminded her of me, primarily due to the name of one of their albums, which was the Joshua Tree, which is a name I went by in another time in my life. Preceding her death, I did not like this band and would actively avoid them. However, now that she's gone, I find a great deal of comfort in their music and have since added them to my playlist, and I never skip them now. Have the song I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For is now a personal favorite of mine. And also, just kind of want to throw this out there. In high school, one song in particular was responsible for convincing me that I should break up with multiple people that I was dating due to its lyrics and style. It was just a rock ballad that convinced me I should find happiness, and spoiler alert, I didn't. Not because of that song. So that concludes my presentation. I just want to thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much.